Welcome everyone to this session of People, Their Passion and Purpose. And I'm here with Petrona Joseph. Thank you so much for coming. I'm actually really thrilled to have this opportunity to welcome you here. You're a very busy lady, so I'm happy that we finally got some time together, and I and also my followers, I'm sure will appreciate this after they hear your story. This podcast, it's all about passion and purpose. And you have a lot of both, that's for sure. And that's why I wanted you here. You're so talented in so many different things, such as writing and public speaking and so much more. You're interested in so many different areas and have excelled in everything that you put your mind to. I Googled you. I did some, I was spying on you last night, and I was just like, just amazed, like the articles and so many different things that you've done with your life so far. So excited for
Thank you.
you, for your future as well.
Oh, thank you so much,
You have
Charlene.
so
Thank
much ahead
you.
of you.
Mhm.
Um, so nowadays you're working as a very busy publicist and you are a mental health advocate. You're an ambassador for Relief, the Path of Mental Health, and
Mhm.
it's a Montreal-based organization supporting people who live with mental health challenges and their families. Your book titled Stigmatized, Breaking the Silence and Demystifying Mental Illness tells your story. And this is what brings us with you today. Your story, your life story has given you a passion and purpose to share your story, to help others. And we are really very grateful for that. So that's your segue into tell me in the time that we have together, what would you like to say about your story and how you got to where you are, and talk about your book and
Mhm. Well,
what
thank
made
you,
you write that
Charlene.
book? Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's such an honor to be here with you. I miss Montreal tremendously, so it's
Mm,
nice to always connect with fellow Montrealers while here
yeah.
in Atlanta.
Mm,
Well, as you know, Charlene, I wrote my book during COVID,
mm,
and COVID was a pivotal time for me because it was the time where I decided that it was a good segue to wean off of antidepressants because I was on antidepressants for 9 years. During those 9 years, I think I took maybe 1 year off, and it was just a horrible experience. I went through withdrawals. So my doctor said, well, why don't you go back on? Now, to get to that point of taking antidepressants, it took 10 years for me to finally come to a place where I was ready to get help, where I was ready to get healing. And so when I wrote my book, I wrote it during COVID after a conversation online was sparked. So I suffer, well, I shouldn't say I suffer. I used to suffer with panic attacks while driving, right? And so it started coming on subtly, but I'm like, you know what? Push it off. Let me go to the gym, work hard at the gym, give my energy elsewhere because that's what I was reading online. And then so the panic attacks would subside. They did not. It got worse. And as I describe in the book, one day, with no warning, because when you're getting a panic attack, you get warnings, right? Your palms are getting sweaty, your shortness of breath, you feel like you're dying. But that particular morning, there was no warning. And I was on the old Champlain Bridge, suspended 30,000 feet in the air with a company car that was not mine. My
mm,
biggest fear was that I would damage the car, I would die because I thought that I was going to fall over the bridge. Okay. And I lost control of the vehicle momentarily and I had to stop. When I stopped, the traffic police, they're like, you can't stop your car. It's 8 o'clock in the morning on
right.
a Monday. What are
Oh
you
my goodness.
doing?
Oh
And
my
they were
goodness.
telling me in French, bouge ton char.
Mm,
That was the morning that I drove myself right to the hospital.
mm,
And I told the doctor, I was like, whatever you have, whatever prescription is available, please give it to me because
mm.
I need help. So that was the start of my journey. And of course, the prescription I was given, I couldn't stay on it long term. So then I went to my family doctor about a week or two later. And that's where the real battle started because my family doctor, I was like, just give me whatever, do I have to take,
Mm.
breathing exercises? Like, what do I have to do? And he's like, no, you need to go on antidepressants. And I'm like, hells no. I was so upset. I
Mm,
tapped his table. I said, "How dare you?" And he
mm,
says, "Petrona, you've been depressed for the last 10 years. And now your depression, it is manifesting in different ways. Now your anxiety is also manifesting." And he told me, "This pill that I'm going to be giving you, or this antidepressant that I'm going to be this prescribing to you, it would be good for your anxiety and your depression." I was okay with the anxiety part. Okay.
mm.
Because I didn't really see that as a weakness. I was like, okay, anxiety, fine. But the depression part, that is the part that I was like, no, I was in denial. I'm going to fight through this.
Okay,
And
that's
so
interesting.
I
You
describe
f-
that in my book.
you felt different. I have a pen in my You felt differently about anxiety and depression.
Depression
Right,
meant I was a failure. I
right.
looked at that prescription in my vehicle and I would never forget that moment. Sitting in a, at that point in my life, I had reached the pinnacle of success. I thought, right? I finished
Mm,
university. I wanted to go to law school. I went. I didn't like it. So I had done everything that I wanted to do, working for one of the best companies in the world. And
mm,
there I was looking at this prescription and I'm like, I have to take this. And I'm like, I feel like a failure. I have
mm,
failed at life. And I cried and I went and pick it up. But a week later, Charlene, I was able
mm.
to get out of bed easier. I was able to make my bed easier. You see, so before that, I would spend maybe 15 minutes. Come on, Petrona. Wake up, Petrona. Life is worth living. Oh, you got this. You're a champion just to get out of bed.
So you didn't realize that you were depressed. You thought you were anxious.
I had some inklings that it was depression. I mean, I knew when you're in bed for 2 3 days and you can't do
Hmm.
anything, and your phone is ringing, you don't want to reply to anyone. I mean, I
Hmm.
knew it was that on some levels, but
Yeah.
because of my cultural background, I didn't want to succumb to it,
Mm.
right? And of course, also, in I'd have to mention this, religious beliefs did not allow me to want to take any antidote or want to take any, prescription medication. But in my
Hmm.
case, it was that severe. There are varying degrees of depression, right? Or
Hmm.
sadness, but mine was prolonged.
Okay. So, yeah, it's really interesting because I didn't know we were really going to talk about this. I thought we were going to talk about some other things. So, but
Oh, I'm
I find,
sorry.
no, I think it's fantastic. That's why I love these interviews. You sort of, I clear my mind before I sit down so that I can let whatever's coming up. And I just find it really interesting how you didn't have that same attitude about
I did not.
anti-anxiety. So I just want to keep that in mind for another time. But
Mhm.
also, we don't have tons of time to talk about your book too much. I don't know what else you want to tell us, but I will put a link in our, bio and stuff like that for you to be able to for people to be able to go on and see. But I think in your book, tell us a little bit about what you talk about in your book, the demystifying.
Stigmatized. Right. So I speak a little bit about how dysfunctional my childhood was. I think
Yes.
that a lot of mental illness or people that are struggling currently, sometimes, my sister was saying to me the other day, "Oh, when you come from this household, this is," I told her, "No, we're all damaged. We're all needing therapy.
Hmm.
99.9% of each one of us. There's no one with a perfect childhood, right?
Mm.
But there are varying degrees of trauma. So with my trauma, it started with my mom passing away, living with a stranger who wasn't very kind,
Yeah.
moving from home to home to home to home. And I remember, like, I think it was in my 20s, I started seeing a psychologist, and I think I was like, okay, I gotta move. I'm getting ready to move. She's like, why? And I'm like, well, because it's time to move. I'm moving. And for
Mm.
the first time in my life, I was able to heal that part of me that was just always jumping from place to place. So I lived in Paris for 3 days, I don't know if you read the book, but I mentioned that
Hmm.
in the book.
Hmm.
I've lived in Toronto,
Hmm.
Boston. So I was able to heal that part of me. But that's what I talk about in the book, the
Right.
instability, losing friends, people not understanding you,
Okay.
people ghosting you because you're erratic. But then also getting to a place where God brought me. I have to give the credit to God, because if it wasn't for God, that morning was pivotal. Because if it wasn't for that morning, I wouldn't have started taking antidepressants.
Wow. And yes, well, on the cover of your book, you do talk a lot about that. And I really appreciated all the questions that you ask yourself, so to let people know that you're asking yourself a lot of questions. It's like you got to a point in your life where you realized that you had to understand yourself and you had to maybe make some changes or heal, right?
Right.
Like you said, heal. Yeah.
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 You know, I want to jump into something because it all sort of came together with me because you have so much experience in communication, right? Like you studied
Mhm.
communication and PR and being the publicist that you are, and I just wondered if that had anything to do with your ability to share so much and also like want to share so much. And I about your
That's
experience.
interesting.
Yeah, I had a flash.
I never
Did you
thought of
ever?
that.
Yes.
Hmm. I never thought of that, honestly. I mean, my first degree was linguistics,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up in PR because of an accident. It was really just by fluke. I had a TV show. I didn't really like being on TV anymore, so then my airtime, I was selling it back, and then
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I ended up being a publicist. But that's very interesting because I am all about communication.
You are. And you studying linguistics and that's how you're writing and you have your blog that you wrote
Oh,
and
right. Yeah, I forgot about my
I mean,
blog. Thank you.
exactly.
Right. Yeah, for
So
10 years.
So this is what I'm trying to say,
Mm.
passion and purpose doesn't just come, there's always how do I say this? There's always like a base for it. There's always something inside that person that brings that out. And
Mhm.
we are so fortunate that you're able to share your experience. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I just wanted to throw that at you because I thought it was really interesting that it's all comes together. So
Right. It's funny.
maybe
That is so true.
yes.
That is so
I
true.
have a feeling, but you can let me know. You'll let me know. The more you think about it, you'll let me know.
I will.
Um, so what sort of message is it that you want to share with people after having written the book? And maybe you could talk about, your new book coming up and
Mm.
what that all means to you and what that means to you to be able to share it with everybody in that way.
Hmm. I think that the greatest impact for me about writing about my experiences is that it touches other people like myself who struggle. I still struggle, but when I wrote my book, actually, I wrote a first book that was really, really bad. Okay.
Okay.
And it was your blog, because it was a business book. Your blog
Mm.
is your business startup. It was really, really badly written. I sold it on Amazon. And I remember for my book signing, I had people register. So I'm like, oh my God, this is really happening. So this was many, many years ago. So I invited everyone to come to my house. I'm like, why am I going to rent a place? Why don't you all just come to my house? But in that book, I spoke about when I had my grocery store and how when I relinquished my grocery store, how depressed I was. And that was the focus of a lot of my book readings, right? And
Mm.
in one book reading, I had like these men, these like really, like honcho men sitting at my table in my kitchen and we're eating. And they were like, well, I suffer from depression. I suffer from anxiety while driving. So that always remained with me, right? How
Hmm.
people didn't have a safe place to share. And then from that, I used to do family dinners where I would invite my closest guy friends that, not that they didn't have the support, but I wanted to create a safe place. So once a month, they would come to my house and just talk about anything, talk about, whatever they were going through. So I wanted to really build on that. I kind of wanted to build a community of people who go through similar experiences with depression and anxiety, because if you have never been depressed, like my best friend, you know who she is, she's never been depressed, she's been sad. So when I describe to her sometimes what I'm going through, she may not really grasp the severity of it, you know what I mean, versus
Mm-hmm.
somebody who has experienced the severity of it. So that's what I wanted to convey in my book. Like I've been to the depths, I've been, as I mentioned in the book, I signed a pact at 30. I was about to, relinquish everything in this world, right? And so I'm grateful to God that I'm still here. But if you've never spoken to somebody who's never had those extreme, desires, they're not going to get it. So also, I want to talk about antidepressants because, especially in cultural communities, ethnic communities, it's a no.
Mm.
No medication. You have parents saying, no, my child is not taking that. But I have family members who are now on medication, right? After many, many years of their parents or other people in, the family setting saying, no. Even a very, very close family member told me many, many years later, he said, I get it now because I'm also on this particular medication,
Mm.
right? So that's, and
Yeah.
I wanted to break that barrier. So that was the first book. The following book, well, the book that I am working on is describing how life is after antidepressants. Because you
Right.
think that it's a linear thing. Because when I started taking antidepressants and started seeking healing, I thought it was a 1 year process. Right. And I remember calling my doctor, Dr. Mins saved my life. I like to say that he from Lakeshore. I don't know if you know Dr.
Hmm.
Mins.
No.
Okay, Dr. Gabriel Mins. So I remember my first year, I'm like, okay, hey doc, what's up? How you doing? It's time. Take me off this
Mm.
med, because I was gaining weight. That's another thing they don't talk about, right?
Mm.
So when I
Right.
noticed that I was gaining the weight, I'm like, take me off of this thing right away. And he's like, you can't. I can't take you off. It's been 1 year. Year five. I'm like, okay, that's enough. How long are you going to keep me on this medication? And he's like, as long as it takes. 9 years later. And if his office didn't close down, because his office closed down during COVID and he
Mm.
retired, he might have continued, but it helped me. Charlene, I couldn't even take an escalator at the mall. You know the mall in TMR?
Hmm.
What's that mall called
Rockland,
again?
Rockland,
I
Rockland.
couldn't take, when you're going upstairs to the food
Yeah.
court,
Yeah.
I would be walking over overpasses, let's say
Mm.
to go to the gym with Ellie, right? And
Mm.
Ellie was so compassionate because I remember telling him, like, I can't walk the overcross. I can't do it, And he had
Mm.
offered like to come and get me, but on occasions where I had to like walk over the carry, let me tell
Oh.
you, I had to ask strangers to hold my hand. Some of them would look at me like the first person would be like, "What?" The second or third person would hold my hand, hold me for me to
Oh.
walk over.
Hmm.
So antidepressants heal that. I'm glad to say I could walk in Rockland, by myself. I could take the escalator, go to the food court, but I couldn't do
Yeah.
all that stuff before. And I became an
Mm.
agoraphobic.
Hmm.
I started to have a fear at one point in my life to go outside.
Right.
And nobody talks about that, but that's also a symptom of anxiety. So I would go outside at night. I'm a night owl. So my poor dog, I'll be like, well, girl, we gotta go out early in the morning. We'd walk in
Mm.
like areas where people couldn't see me really. And
Mm.
then at night, I'd take her for her longer walk. But,
Mm.
some days were better than others. But so, but I'm better now. I can go out in the daylight now. And so these are the things that people don't realize that antidepressants help. And the reason why I push the narrative of antidepressants, because it also helps intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts are the thoughts that are telling you you don't belong here.
Right.
Nobody loves you. Why are you here? You know what I mean? It helps to
Mm.
quench that. It helps that a lot, Charlene, I used to battle on a daily basis, um,
Mm.
like I don't want to say the word, but like unalive yourself. Get, you know what I mean? Like and just go to a place and just sink and sink. Meanwhile, I'm functional. I'm traveling for the company I was working for. I am, you look at me, that's why the book is called Stigmatized, Demystifying, because people will look at me and if I mention, well, I'm feeling kind of sad today, you sad? You have everything, but inside, oh my. And so my experience makes me a lot more compassionate with other people. I'm so compassionate with people. because we're all struggling. I just recently overcame a 2-day episode, right? Where you couldn't tell me nothing. My sister's like, talk to me. Like, I can't talk to you. I had a friend, she actually picked up the phone because I told her I was retiring, meaning I was going to go to bed. And she was like, what? So she picked up the phone. She goes, what is that? What does that word mean? I said, it means I'm going to bed. She was like, oh,
Okay.
okay,
Mm,
but that's just
yeah.
recently, you know what I mean? But
Mm,
prior to me getting the help and the counseling, oh, that would go on for
mm,
days.
mm. And so you did both the medication and the counseling
Oh yeah.
together. That's important.
Very important.
Mm,
Yeah. And then I went through this whole thing of like Reiki. I did sound healing.
mm,
And for 8 years, I was just doing like all of these like shamanic type of, rituals because I wanted to get healing. Meanwhile, all I really needed was
that.
the proper medication, the proper
Mm,
diagnosis.
right, right. Wow. I mean, you have a lot to share to so many people. Wow. And so I really liked when you talked about people coming to your house and how you wanted to build a community for people who felt
Mhm.
like they had no one to talk to and nowhere to go.
Mhm.
Thank you for doing that.
Oh,
I
thank
really,
you.
yeah, I think that's really cool that you did that.
Mhm. And with
Yeah.
food, good food too.
Yeah, that's good. Food's the best healer, right?
Exactly. Oh
Yeah.
yes. Oh
Makes people feel
yes.
welcome and warm and
Mhm.
safe and yeah, wow,
Oh
that's
yes.
beautiful.
Thank
And
you.
so your new book coming out, do you know when it's
Mhm.
coming out?
My aim is for May.
Okay, great.
And
Yeah.
so, because I write short books.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's gonna sit there and read a 300-page book? you
Mm-hmm.
know so I like my books. People, I had my first book. My ex made fun of it. He goes, this is a magazine. But I'm like, I don't even have time. I have friends who've written amazing books and they're
Mm-hmm.
still on my shelf because they're not on Audible. So what I love with the books that I write is that I get pictures of people, they literally are taking baths and they're
Mm.
reading my book either in one shot or two shots. That's it.
Okay,
So
cool.
so
That's
yeah,
cool.
so
Yeah,
this is
so
gonna
coming out
be
in May. So
correct.
coming
Yeah.
out, that's great. And so it's about now, like how you're living now. You're not taking any more medication. Do you want to say a few words about that as well?
That's hard. That's very hard because when you're on antidepressants, you don't feel anything. You
Mm-hmm.
don't feel. So for 9 years, I didn't feel anything. I remember when I started feeling stuff, I was spiraling. I was like, what is this emotion? What's happening? So then I learned with relief, as you know, I'm an ambassador. I
Mm,
had to get counseling because they had to tell me, like, okay, well, this is maybe the emotion you're feeling. So maybe these are some of the actions you could take before you spiral, even you go down even, a a deeper rabbit hole. But yeah, no, I learned how to identify again, like, okay, maybe I'm feeling this way, maybe I should go cook, and cook for the family, or maybe I'm feeling this way, maybe I should go jog or lift weight, you know what I mean? Or
right,
maybe I should call a friend or a family member, because your
right,
life partners can't be your everything, right? So
right.
maybe I should diversify, maybe I should go shopping today. So
Okay.
it's
So
but
they gave you a chance. They gave you some tools.
yes, but
Mm,
healing is lifelong. You would
mhm.
think that after all of my advocacy, after all the tools that I have, that my 2-day episode that just happened last week, you would think that a person like myself, I would be able to snap out of it. I tried to snap out of it. I really, really tried. But when it started lifting, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I was there again. So it is a lifelong journey.
What brought you there?
My injury.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So just very quickly, tell us you were injured quite like it's a few months already, and I
October
think,
4th.
and you're struggling.
Yeah, because
And
I walk with a limp. I've never walked with a limp. I have
mm,
plates in my leg. I have screws in my leg. And, for me, it was just because I came to expand my business. I came to meet people. And then so I was bedridden for 2 months. Surprisingly, I was depressed within those 2 months, but I was
mhm,
able, because of the support that I had, I thank God for that. My cousin and her family, and just people
mhm.
around me, my loved ones from Montreal as well.
Mhm.
had so much love that I was able to maintain. Like people would just call me and just talk to me, you know?
Right,
But
right.
when you see your leg, when I saw my leg on an x-ray, it
Mm,
impacted me deeply because I love jogging. I
mm,
love long walks, listening to audiobooks. I love weightlifting. So
mm.
I was like, so when am I going to be able to jog again? When am I'm going to be able to go on like a 3 hour walk again, you know? So
Yeah.
it just impacted me. Like I sacrificed so much, and then this had to happen. Not to mention, I'm in the U.S., so I have medical bills, right? So
Mm,
it just weighs down on you and just impacts you. And I've never had surgery in my life. I've never had surgery. I've never had like any major, medical concerns. So this year, because I can't. I'm walking with a limp.
yeah,
When
yeah,
it's cold today. It
yeah,
affects my plate and my leg,
yeah,
but we shall overcome. I give it 6 more months
yeah.
and I'll be back in heels.
Okay. We got to get you back in here. That's your goal to get
Yes,
back in heels.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
That's for sure. You're so gorgeous. You're
Thank
gorgeous in
you.
anything you wear and every time I see you, you're gorgeous.
Oh,
But
thank
I
you.
can
So are
understand.
you. So are
Oh,
you. You
thank
are
you.
radiating.
Thank you. I don't wear heels, but I actually also was in an accident and I lost
Oh.
2/3 of my kneecap, but we can talk about that another
Oh.
time. 20,
Oh.
yeah, about, yeah, a long time ago in my 20s. But
Mm.
so I
Sorry.
do understand a lot of what you're saying and like your life changes. And so getting back to the struggles that you've had with your mental health, every time that there's something, it kind of affects it. And I guess what I'm hearing from you is that, there are times where you might go a little bit deeper in, but I'm so grateful that you have such a great community around you and
Mhm.
friends and
Support. I have
people
great
that,
support.
yeah,
Samantha Chris from Montreal,
yeah,
that's my girl.
she's
That's my
amazing.
one of my, greatest supporters. I have a prayer group. I have, Clara Lewis from Montreal as well.
Yeah,
Molly, oh my gosh, And
yeah,
in here I have Natasha Edwards and I have my sisters. So then of course, okay,
yeah.
right. But then, it's just a matter of understanding again that healing is not linear. And I know executives who speak at some of the events that I speak at in mental health. And I think one of them, he unalived himself in Montreal. Remember
Mm,
that businessman? He was a mental health advocate. It's a
no,
lifetime thing, and he
I
was
know.
out there and he had a whole community built about mental
Mm,
health. And I see these men, they struggle. Some of these men, they're advocating and they struggle. I just saw one today. He told everybody on Facebook, he's like, I'm getting off of here. I'm struggling.
mm,
So it's a lifelong thing.
yeah,
You're never really out of it.
yeah,
You can
yeah,
manage it though.
yeah. And so, coming to the end of our discussion here, you
Mhm.
are really giving everybody so much support and that message of being kind and reaching out. Like this is what I'm hearing from you,
Mhm.
get that
Mhm.
help you need. It's okay. It's not a bad thing.
It's not.
We can have mental health issues and also be successful and also be
Mhm.
happy and also have a life that we want. Like we are all working at it. So
Right.
every
Yes.
day,
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I'm
Absolutely.
hearing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
When someone is going through a hard time, this is what Samantha started doing with me, and I started doing
Yeah.
with other people. Send them Uber Eats. Send them their favorite
Oh.
meal. Send them so when Sam noticed, okay, all right, P is struggling, she'd
Mm.
call me, she'd be like, what do you want? And I'd always order the same
Mm.
thing. And it would get
Mm.
me, get me out of bed. It would put a smile on my face. And it had the ability. So, love and connection and
Yeah.
support, that is so important. That is
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. Beautiful. Wow. Wow. So, yeah, I guess, we covered quite a few things.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to know one more time, like when you write a book, what do you personally get from writing that book?
Oh my gosh.
That's my last question. What do
I
you
haven't even
get from
read
it?
my other book in a long time. I remember when I wrote my other book, I couldn't even pick it up. And then I saw people
Hmm.
reading it. I was like, oh my goodness. I cannot I
What
get
do
a
you go
sense
through?
of
Yeah.
Well, when I write though, I have to travel, right? So I travel
Hmm.
really far away and I have to really clear my mind because I'm reliving traumas, right?
Mm,
And so with the second book, I remember I was like, oh my God, everybody's gonna and I did have clients that told me they said, we didn't want to read your book before we met you.
mm.
So my book is not on LinkedIn. There's no
Okay.
mention of it there, right? Because
Interesting.
I was stigmatized by writing a book on mental health because
Yes.
it automatically puts you at a default,
Mm.
right? People are going to think you're not able to do the work,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
But so I would say I was scared. I didn't know how it would be received because I talked about a like deep-seated sadness, trauma, as well as trauma with my ex who I was under the influence at one point and it was assault. And so I had never come to a place of actually talking about that with a lot of people. And so
Mhm.
it's in the book and talking about my ex had a heroin habit, a lot of
Mhm.
people don't know that, and so sharing that and then seeing people's reactions and so I would like to say it was cathartic but it was also scary, but I'm better at it now.
That is like so brave of you.
Because I don't believe on giving up on people, right? um and because so many people gave up on me, but I don't believe on giving up on people. And believe it or not, I had seen him a couple years back and he looked fantastic, you know?
Good.
He
Good.
was
My
off of
God.
drugs. He had a son. He was healed.
Oof.
So you know what I mean. So and then look at me, the way I used to be. I was bonkers. I had a friend tell me one time. She's like, I can't keep up with you because one minute you're in Montreal, next minute you're in Florida, next minute
Mm.
I can't keep up with your life. I'm sorry, you're just too out there for me, you know. And
Mm.
so what I try to practice in my life, even if I notice like okay maybe some inconsistencies with somebody or somebody is struggling, I don't give up on them, Charlene. I don't give up on
Mm.
them.
Wow. Wow. Fantastic.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we're gonna get more people to follow your journey and read your book
Thank
and
you. Thank you. Yeah, I
yeah,
hope
read
they
all
like
about
it.
you. My God.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so
especially
much.
after hearing you talk and how you're so open about it and
Yes. Mm-mm-mm-mm.
yeah, and I appreciate this one-on-one with me. I really do.
You're
And
welcome. Oh, this was long too.
so nice to get to know you better. Yeah, you gave us a
Yes.
lot of time. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So, thank you everyone for tuning in to People, Their Passion and Purpose with Petrona Joseph, and of course me, Charlene Young. And we will see you again soon. And Petrona, you take care of yourself
Merci
and take
beaucoup.
care of everyone around you.
I will.
Bonjour.
Merci. Ciao.